their nets at the end of a late overnight fishing trip. Can you imagine? You're washing your nets after a late overnight fishing trip and you caught nothing. And they're not fishing for fun, they're fishing for their livelihood. How would you feel after an all-night fishing trip, catching nothing for your family? And first, Jesus goes onto the boat that they're cleaning up after a long night fishing and catching nothing, and says, can you put this boat out there so I can preach to these people? I don't know about you, but I would have thought, read the room, buddy. Last thing I want to do is put my boat back out in the lake, right? But they do, they comply, and Jesus teaches the people. And then something even more peculiar happens. Jesus tells Peter and the Zebedean brothers, why don't you go back out there, now that you've cleaned your nets and you're done, why don't you go back out there and try one more time? Now, for context, whether you fish or not, it's unlikely that this was a good time of the day to go fishing, because they probably went when it was a good time of the day to go fishing, which is, right, late night or early morning, right, if you know fishing a little bit. And so again, putting yourselves in their shoes, I would have thought, look, man, we let you borrow our boat. Why don't you take your fishing advice and go tell those people you were preaching to your fishing advice, right? It would have been more likely for them to push him off and think, you have no idea what you're talking about, and we're tired, and we just caught nothing, and we just cleaned our nets. We're done. But they don't do that. They don't say that. They pause, and guess what they think about? Their own unrealized potential. Right? And they comply. And they go out in the lake. And they don't just catch some fish. They catch so many fish that their nets almost rip. And by the time they get another boat out there to help them with the nets and attach the nets to the two boats to bring the nets to shore, both of the boats start to sink because of the weight of fish. They didn't catch fish, they caught all the fish. They didn't go home to tell their wives and their families, sorry, we've got nothing. They probably ran home excited, we have just caught the greatest catch of our career. What unbelievable potential that they realized by considering Christ in their life. And that message, to consider Christ in your life, for me to consider Christ in my life, is the point at which unrealized potential can become the Super Bowl, right? Where the things we couldn't even imagine might be possible become reality. This is the message that Jesus Christ is teaching us through the fish that the disciples caught and through that story today. That we, every single one of us, has a much greater potential than we maybe even think about. That when we consider the challenges in our lives, while it might not be a night not catching any fish, every single one of us faces challenges in our life. But we have to be like the disciples. We cannot let those challenges stop us. We have to rather turn to Christ and invite him into those challenges and see what we might catch, where we might go, what we might do in our life. That's the message of this morning's gospel lesson, that you can realize the greatest potential in your life, that this church can realize greater and greater potential as the church on the lakeshore, this beautiful, inspiring place to worship, right? That potential is not just some idea, unless you're a Bears fan. Just kidding. But that potential is a place that you and I can achieve in and through our relationship with Jesus Christ. And so today, as you leave this beautiful sanctuary, I encourage you, and I encourage myself, of course, to think about the greatest limits I'm feeling in my life. What is the greatest thing that you feel like is limiting you in your life, at work, in your spiritual life, in your home, with your children, with your parents, at school maybe, with your health? And ask yourself, honestly, have I actually invited Christ into that struggle in a real way? And if you have, good. But if you haven't, do it. Invite him in. Talk to him about it. Pray to him about it. Encounter the sacraments in those struggles in a way that's helpful. Realize the unrealized potential that's in your life too. Because you and I and the disciples, if we do so, will do much more than catch fish. Because what did they do? They became fishers of men and women. In other words, they transformed the world. May we invite Christ into our struggles, our limits, our sinfulness, and our brokenness. And in doing so, may we achieve much more than nets filled with fish, much more than a Super Bowl. May we achieve the kingdom of heaven realized on this earth, in this church. Amen. God bless you and keep you. We'll come forward for the Antidoro now. I'm sure there's announcements that are normally said now, but I don't know them, so you have to read the bulletin. I'm pretty sure there's an IOCC walk coming up here a week from yesterday, this Saturday, so that's important. I know that. Everything else, I don't really know. So read the bulletin, and we'll see you next door for coffee hour. God bless you today and always. Amen.
Ecco